Sounds from a Safe Harbour. Can you tell me a little bit about like the idea behind it? When you first came to Cork, why Cork is so fantastic.
Yeah. Mary Hickson, who's a Cork native and runs the Cork Opera House, approached me about doing an event, and we have myself and the band included, a kind of a long love affair with Cork as a city, going from having played there. I think one of our first Irish shows was in Cork.
Wow.
One of our first shows in Europe was in Cork, in probably 2002, I think.
Okay.
Or 3, and so it was like stumbling on magical Cork, as it is. It's just this beautiful, kind of enchanted city, just before Christmas, and seeing all the Christmas decorations up, and we played to no one. We played at the Triskel Arts Center, and there were, I think, 20 people there. And then we, years later, we came back and we started doing shows at the Marquee, at the tent.
Yes, yeah.
And when Mary suggested trying to organize something more like a festival, and I immediately thought it was a good idea. Also partly knowing just the way the city's laid out, that it could be possible to do something that would kind of activate the place.
Great. And the title, can you tell me a bit about where you guys got that from?
We had a lot of different ideas, and the title was Mary's idea. We wanted to embrace this idea of risk-taking and a kind of laboratory or workshop for new commissions and works, which is a big part of the festival. There's several new pieces or collaborations that are happening, and then also, there's an idea that a harbor is a kind of port or a doorway to the rest of the world, and so, but it's a safe harbor.
Yeah.
It's a place where you can come and exchange, and so it does have that feeling of like it's a pretty big event.
Yes.
But in intimate setting.
Great.
So there's a sense of kind of closeness and intimacy about it.
And what you mentioned there, just about a place to share new work, and you're obviously a huge collaborator. It seems to be very much part of your process. And can you talk a little bit about some of the people that you're going to be collaborating with, and some of the people that are going to be visiting Cork in September?
It's a mixture of artists coming from our world, from my world of in the States, or more even New York-based people, and then a lot of Irish artists and even Cork-based artists, as well as there's a strong contingent of Icelandic musicians, which is partly because they're brilliant and partly because I feel like they really fit with the kind of adventure-seeking side of music. My brother Aaron, who is probably my closest collaborator in all things. Life. We always, my twin brother. He is doing a new set of songs with the great Irish singer Lisa Hannigan.
Fantastic.
That's a brand new project for this that he agreed to do. So that's what they agreed to do together. It was really exciting.
Great. So a lot of new work then. It's going to be
a lot of new work, and then a lot of artists that will be seen in ways you haven't seen them before, and then some other surprises as well. So,
great.
Yeah.
And the Gloaming, I see, are playing. They're going to be there.
I think that Cork itself has such a strong Cork in Ireland as a music. I mean, it's amazing the amount of incredible music that comes from Ireland as a country, being such a small country by comparison, but with such a huge kind of global significance as a musical place.
Yeah.
And so there's quite a lot of Irish music on the festival, and also some, in some ways, celebrating the folk music of Ireland. I think that when you have a country that has such a strong folk tradition,
yes,
of traditional music, I think that's, kind of building something up from there, and the way that seeps out into various traditions and morphs into other kinds of music, and it's such an interesting kind of thread to follow. And so the Gloaming are a good example of that, of some of Ireland's best and most interesting traditional musicians who have created a new project. It involves another friend of mine who's a collaborator Thomas Bartlett, who
yeah, fantastic.
is New York based, and so yeah, the Gloaming are going to be doing a really great set at the Opera House for the festival.
And you spoke about folk music there, you know, and sort of how you can trace a line back to a lot of contemporary music, right back to, and you've investigated that yourself in your piece, Murder Ballads.
Yeah, in Murder Ballads. Yeah, Crash Ensemble, another
Amazing.
great Irish new music group, one of the best new music groups in the world
Sure,
now.
yeah.
Who are going to be doing, I think, 3 concerts as part of the festival, and one of them will include a piece called Murder Ballads. This is folk music that came from this side of the world.
Traveled across the Atlantic, yeah.
And then became adapted into, Appalachian folk songs. Murder ballads tell the story of these kind of grisly murders, often, romantic themed of, the man doing some horrible thing.
Yeah, generally.
They're beautiful songs, and I wrote the piece a few years ago, and I was thinking about it. It was around the time of there was a lot of shootings in America, and I was thinking about the kind of violence that's part of our culture.
Yeah.
It seems so endemic and so, so horrible, but also so it's always been present in kind of American life. And so I wanted to, do something, but not so severe with it. So I started looking into this tradition of murder ballads, and I adapted them so they're kind of resetting the folk melodies and ideas into a more contemporary work, which is something people have been doing for a long time. And composers like Bartók or Stravinsky, for instance, were really interested in the folk music of where they came from. And I think it's, again, a theme that's running through a lot of the work that'll be happening on the festival.
Great.
It's kind of this intersection between contemporary music and then folk music or songs and bands.
And the crossover between, seems to be a lot of the players, like for example, you'll work in a lot of new music, and then, you've got the National, and same with Richard, and all the guys in the Gloaming have their own projects. And I love to see that sort of cross-fertilization in music. It's, well, just purely as a listener, it's very stimulating when you see someone, taken out of what would be conceived or perceived as their comfort zone and put into a different.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting for the audience, just to.
I think that, the way that as music listeners we travel and search for different kinds of music, and you rarely find